All right, everybody. So I am here to do a podcast episode about Kamen Rider the Next, the extended version that was released by Media Blasters recently with Kamen Rider the First. It is a sequel to Kamen Rider the First, and as you guys may know from the previous podcast episode, where I'm looking at these reboot series movies, I don't really, or I didn't really think too highly of Kamen Rider the First. I thought it was ultimately just not great and just kind of boring. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't necessarily say it was boring in the first or the last podcast video, I guess, but like or recording or whatever. But yeah, it was just boring. I didn't really like vibe with the story that they were trying to tell with it. I honestly think it got in the way of focusing on the more what should have been the more intriguing and focused part of the story with um uh Takeshi and Hayato fighting Shocker and everything. Instead it was a film that was focused on the love triangle between those two and Asuka. And yeah, no, I didn't really give a shit about that plot at all. Um, and a lot of people, from what I understand, do not who watched the film. So yeah, and in all honesty, I don't think it should be your first entry into the franchise because, well, it's just not indicative of the good of Kamen Rider. So when we get to Kamen Rider the Next, um, I was really surprised that I was actually kind of gripped with the plot a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, it is very much an improved sequel, and I will go over that as we go through this. First of all, the video presentation on the disc, which comes from the Japanese Blu-rays for both, is so much better than Kamen Rider the First. It came out in 2007, the next, so Blu-rays were out. Sony was going to release the PS3 with a Blu-ray player, and they had Blu-ray players just separately and everything. So they saved an HD version of the movie. 2005, that was just like a year or two away. So yeah, so they did not apparently save an HD version of the movie, and they chose not to transfer or do a transfer of the movie in HD when putting it on Blu-ray, and I will never understand why. I did download find and download a Japanese Blu-ray rip, and it's the same master. Unfortunately, it seems like maybe they upscaled it further, but maybe the rip I found was compressed a bit because it was 8 GB as opposed to 18 on the Media Blasters Blu-ray. But yeah, so basically, Kamen Rider the Next gets just a better movie pass just from that because it looks better. It's in HD, and everything is more clear. Everything is a bit more crisp. The colors are so much better for a lot of the scenes in the movie. Now, there are some scenes in the movie that genuinely do have really poor like colors, like I'm trying to think, like just more desaturated colors in some shots than others. It's mainly just a few scenes more at the beginning of the film, and as the film goes on, thankfully, the film actually still has some color to it. I really don't understand why this is, and I honestly think you bump up the saturation on those few scenes that do have the very desaturated shots, and you could have a very consistent, like, uh, slightly desaturated look to the movie. And that's why I think Kamen Rider the First would look so much better in HD if they did a transfer for it. Because even though it has more moments that are definitely more desaturated than the next does, the fact that that transfer is also in 480p does not do a lot of those scenes justice, or yeah, in terms of the look of the film, because they don't look clear, they don't look crisp, because not only is it in 480p, it is not downscaled from 1080p or even 4K, so it doesn't look that clear. It doesn't look that crisp. It just looks like a really shitty transfer of a theatrical movie. You know, that was done for the DVDs back in the day, and then they decided to use that. They decided to upscale that rather than like retransfer the movie in HD. I just don't understand it. But yeah, and I can tell this movie also had a bigger budget allotted to it because you get a bit more high stakes action with it. You get I think that was mainly because they were allowed a little bit more time to shoot it because apparently I looked at the behind the scenes stuff. They only shot the first within about I want to say like a month and a half, maybe at most. Which, granted, is the norm for a lot of films, but they also had a budget to work with that was very low, and so they couldn't really do a lot with like locations and the action and certain other things. Whereas the next, they definitely had more of a budget for stuff like CGI and pyrotechnics and location shooting and all that stuff. And I think that they did a really good job scouting good locations to shoot at for the action scenes. The CGI, I would say, is okay. It's kind of on the level of maybe a 2010s to even early 2020s Marvel movie, which is not really great because to compare it to that because like CGI in Marvel movies is very hit or miss depending on the film and yeah and everything. But that's still I think good for a Japanese movie. It's definitely better than the CGI, say, in Kamen Rider Heisei Generations Forever, which came out 11 years after this movie, but has worse CGI in it for the mech stuff and everything. Which, granted, it's harder. That's harder to animate and render without like having enough time to properly do it. Which is why it looks shit. But in this, the CGI looks fine. You can tell though when there's green screening and CGI on the screen though. Most of the time, and thankfully they save the majority of it for the end of the movie. So yeah, everything else is shot pretty practically. And that's also one of the things I'm really surprised why they didn't make an HD transfer of Kamen Rider the First. Because, like, that film doesn't have any CGI in it as far as I can tell. And it was shot all practically. So all they would need to do is scan the film into their computers, clean it up, make sure the colors are good, and you have a good, like, mid-2000s movie transfer. So yeah, and it would match visually better with the next. But yeah, so there's CGI fire in this movie. There's I'm trying to remember what else. There's green screening for some of the characters at points, which if you watch the behind the scenes stuff, you can tell what is green screened and what isn't. And it luckily, like I said, it is saved for the final scenes of the movie, which is fine. There's also a shot where they had to composite a few things together for the Shocker lair in this movie, I believe. And it looks just about as good as you'd expect for a movie like this. The compositing could use a re-render if they were to give this movie another pass, which I doubt they're going to, but could just use a re-render. The green screening could use another pass as well, but yeah, it's just something that I just wanted to cover. In terms of the story, I think it's a lot better than the first movie. It doesn't have to deal with a fucking love triangle, and it doesn't have to deal with like whatever else. It definitely has to do with the Shocker stuff more so than not. And on top of that, they went for more of a horror feel in this movie. I don't know what kind of movie besides a superhero movie they were going for with the first, but they even say it in the behind the scenes features that they were going for more of a horror feel with this movie, and you can definitely tell. The A plot mainly has to deal with basically it's a very similar kind of story to The Ring and movies like that, where there's this dead chick, Chiharu, and she, well, actually no, she's not even really dead. It's weird. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if this is like a Japanese thing where I'm just not getting it, or if the movie was just genuinely being unclear about why certain things were happening. But basically, she was an idol in Japan, which is basically just, a young female singer and performer. And she comes out of the screen for any when anyone is listening to and watching the music video for her song Platinum. Isn't it? Is it Platinum Idol? Platinum Smile. And I had to check the back of the DVD or the Blu-ray case to make sure on that, because the raw music video is on the disc. So yeah, and she ends up killing them partway through the song. So yeah, and that gets spread throughout the movie as a rumor, sort of, but like more and more people are apparently dying while watching the music video. So, it's one of those things. That plot I will get into more in a bit. Meanwhile, we see Takeshi has gotten a job as a science teacher, I believe, or maybe he's a health teacher. It's one of the two. At a high school. I think it's supposed to be the same school that is in the first movie, but it's really weird because he said he was going to help out in the lab, but we don't see him working in the lab. And this is also a thing. They don't bring back Asuka. I don't know why. While I'm fine with them not like repeating the love triangle shit from the first movie, I don't really think that they needed to get rid of Asuka entirely. I think that she could have been used in this movie as maybe another perspective to bring in, rather than just Takeshi and everything. She's not even mentioned. So yeah, basically, there's this troubled kid named, I need to check, Kotomi, and she is basically dealing with the fact that Chiharu, who I mentioned a little bit ago, was her best friend, and basically, after Chiharu became an idol singer, she basically they stopped talking after a bit, and she doesn't really know why, but she's also resenting Chiharu for doing that, I believe is what the intention was. And yeah, but she's like basically depressed about it, and she's not doing well at school. She is very depressed. Her attendance is slipping because she keeps skipping out on classes and shit. I'm assuming her grades are not doing that well either, because she doesn't seem to be studying. And yeah, so Takeshi basically wants to try and help her, raise her grades, get her attendance back up and everything, or just evened out or whatever, or else she'll be expelled. And he doesn't want to see her do poorly. And she's basically the only kid in the class that he teaches that isn't a douchey piece of shit. Just to put it bluntly. This is also really weird. I was under the assumption that Japanese high schools were maybe a little bit more formal, organized, and whatever than American classrooms. But even American classrooms, like, I don't know, in all my years of being in school in like elementary, middle, and high school, and even a couple of years I went to college. Like our classrooms never got that like rowdy during a when class was actually in session. Usually that happens like before or immediately or like towards the end of class when like the lesson is wrapped up or before it even begins, and we just have a little bit of free time to like talk and do whatever. It kind of reminds me of the remedial English class, I believe, that Mrs. Hafer puts Drake in an episode of Drake and Josh. I think in season 3, because he's not doing well in English because, well, Drake in that show is stupid. It just reminded me kind of that. I had to wonder if Takeshi was teaching, like, I don't know, not really a remedial class, but like a class for like troubled kids or whatever, or the tough kids in school. It's really weird because like these kids are really rowdy. They talk over him. They're not even listening to what he's talking about in terms of his lessons. Um, they are, like I said, really rowdy. And then one of them even, it seems, flashes him, I think her panties is what the thing was. Um, and they even make fun of Takeshi for, like, they think he's a virgin and, like, they make fun of him for it, which is just like, it's your fucking teacher, guys. Who really, and on top of that, who really gives a shit? Like, it's really stupid. And yeah, it's like to the point where like he ends the lesson. Actually, I think the bell rings for them to go to their next classes. So he basically just ends the lesson out of like just kind of embarrassment, because of what happened. You know, um, it's really just odd. I really don't know what else to say. Um, but yeah, but basically it kind of gets into like creepy territory a little bit or stalker territory, but he tries to talk to her at her place, which um I guess she got emancipated or her parents just allow her to live on her own because she's like she seems like 16, 17 years old, so yeah, because it's specifically out of high school. And yeah, so she just lives on her own and everything. And yeah, so he tries to talk to her at her apartment. She doesn't want to talk. Then eventually she tries to meet up with the president of Chiharu's fan club to talk about her. And he gets whacked by the ghost of Chiharu. And then like when she sees that, she passes out. He brings her home, and then they have a discussion about what it is, and she reveals to him that Chiharu and her were friends, and that like at some point Chiharu started or stopped talking to her. But it's after that we find that, or that Shocker is still tracking down Takeshi, and he transforms into Kamen Rider to stop them, and she finds out he's Kamen Rider very early on because she sees him without his helmet. Or no, she sees him transform, and yeah, so yeah, and that's when we find out that Shocker has been making some more cyborgs and upgraded cyborgs from him and why can I not remember anyone's names ever? Um, Hayato, and yeah, so he gets away after fighting off some of the cyborgs, and then they meet up the next day, and yeah, or maybe it's then that they have, I don't know. It's at some point that they have the conversation, whether it's at her place or if actually it might be the next day. I think it's at the school when like they sit in the cafeteria and talk about what's going on and everything. And basically he starts helping her out with investigating. So she brings him to Chiharu's brother, Shiro Kazami, and If you know Kamen Rider, you know who this guy is. But basically they break into what I thought was his house, but it's actually a restaurant, and that he runs, I believe. And turns out they try to talk to him about Shiharu. He hasn't seen her in a while. Or actually, no. Right, he doesn't say that until after this. Basically, he doesn't want to talk to them at first. Um, and then he reveals to Takeshi that he's a cyborg, and it turns out he's a new Kamen Rider, this time V3. Yep, adaptation of V3 right here. So, yeah. So they start fighting um, a lot, and then it's Hayato. He comes in and saves Takeshi from dying against the Shocker goons and everything. Hayato, though, is still dying from the blood stuff from the first movie. So, yeah. Um, he just goes away before Takeshi and him can talk. Um, so, yeah. So, to get on with the main plot, I guess, um, they eventually find out through talking with Shiro and a chick who is made up to look like Chiharu. That Chiharu basically, at the same time, Shiro and I think his assistant or whatever are infected with nanoborgs because that's what turns them into cyborgs. These new nanoborgs that get into your body and transform you into a cyborg from the inside out. Reminds me very much of the main villain from Metal Gear Rising Resistance. But yeah, and nanomachines, son. Yeah, I believe that's what he says. Um, but basically, I'm trying to remember. That it also infected Chiharu, but they never really find that out, as far as I can tell. But basically, Chiharu had, or she goes away. Then it's after Shiro gets, and the woman is next to him, I guess, his assistant, um, are told that they are now being drafted by Shocker. Uh, and the guy who drafts him, his whole motif is, I think, a leopard. And oh boy, his actor. I'll talk about his actor in a little bit because he's interesting with the way that he's acting in this movie. But but yeah, so um after Chiharu gets out of there because she was also infected with nanoborgs, so she's slowly turning into a cyborg as well. Um, when she's about to, I don't know if she's filming a music video or doing a photo shoot. It's something like that. Um, she when she's like feeling a little weird, going down some stairs, two girls who I think are supposed to be her friends or her posse or something. I don't know. I don't really know what the hell they're supposed to be. If someone could explain down in the comments, that would be great. Um, when this video goes on YouTube and everything. They get jealous and decide the best thing would be to fucking push her down the stairs. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck that shit was all about. Like, they get jealous because apparently she was getting all the attention, but it's just like, she's an idol. She's supposed to be getting all the attention and, like, for her job and shit like that. I don't understand it whatsoever, but they end up pushing her down the stairs. Um, and she gets electrocuted by being bashed into a fuse box. at the bottom of the stairs. Yeah. And because of but because of the fact that her body is still being transformed into a cyborg, she doesn't die. She just gets her face just gets horribly disfigured, and she gets sent to not a hospital, but like somewhere to get her face reconstructed. Um, but as we find out later, she like half her face gets mutated. I don't really know why. Like genuinely, I don't know why her face, half of her face and body gets mutated. Um, they never really explain it. She doesn't get infected with some sort of virus. I don't think it's the nanoborgs doing it, unless of the electrocution like fucked them up enough. It's just really weird. But yeah, so half of her face like gets mutated, and she's slowly mutating throughout all that. Um, and to basically just get rid of her, they dunk her in. I think it's Shocker that does it. They dunk her into, or drop her off into a vat in a basement somewhere, some kind of like thing. They don't really explain what exactly that was, but yeah. Um, and she's there for a bit before the rest of the half of her body mutates, like her left half, the left half of her body mutates, and she crawls out. Which the weird time scales of these movies is just, I don't know. I can't tell if that was like immediate or if she's been down there for a while. I don't know. Um, but yeah, and then she starts like doing the ring type shit that she's been doing. Um, but then her the two bitches that pushed her down the stairs, one of them gets told by the record exec that she's going to pretend to be Chiharu, and she gets her face surgically modified to look like Chiharu, and somehow her voice also gets changed to sound like Chiharu's. It's really odd. It's kind of like some face-off type shit. Is what I was thinking when I was watching that shit. Chiharu eventually gets to the first girl who is pretending to be her. Then they have and kills her, and then they get. Oh yeah, right. Chiharu basically when she sees her mutation, she jumps off the top of the hospital. So I guess it was a hospital they sent her to, and I guess they presume her dead. So that's why she's down in the pits, down in the Rancor pit, I guess. And yeah, so that's why they're down there, or that's why she's down there, I guess. But I'm just like, it seems like that's where Shocker would dispose of bodies of dead people who don't survive the mutation process. It's really odd. But yeah, so after she gets the first chick, the second chick gets forcibly like drafted into being Chiharu and gets her face surgically changed and her voice also changed. And that's when Shiro goes to visit her when she's in her dressing room for I think a photo shoot. And while she knows he's her brother, Chiharu's brother, she doesn't remember, obviously, because she didn't know that Chiharu sent him her watch. So when she doesn't react like he'd expect, he just pretty much accuses her of not being Chiharu right away and being like, what happened to her and whatever. Until her manager in the record, her manager gets security to escort him out. So, yeah. So then, when I'm trying to remember when Kotomi gets hold of the watch, Chiharu's spirit, I guess, appears to her shows her what happened in a flashback for her like mutation and jumping off the hospital roof and all that shit. And yeah, just to explain what happened there, I guess. And then the watch gets stuck on 3, and Shiro sees that and lets Takeshi know that the next day at 3 p.m. is when Shocker plans to use all their nanoborgs to transform all of Japan into cyborgs. No idea how they're going to do that exactly, and it just seems like maybe it's some kind of like airborne virus type shit. I don't know. It's not really explained how they're going to do that, and I don't know what kind of facility they're in to exactly do that, unless if maybe they're gonna dunk it in the water supply. I don't know. Um, Again, it's not really explained, and I don't really know what it's supposed to be and everything. So yeah. Um, so Shiro takes that as a sign that Chiharu wants them to stop Shocker. Um, and so he joins Takeshi and Hayato to fight Shocker, although Takeshi just wants to go it alone. He Shiro tells Hayato that Takeshi's going to do that, and Hayato tells Takeshi. Takeshi initially like hits him in the stomach and everything because he found out. I think before, yeah, he found out before that when he went to go talk to Hayato that basically he's still dying and everything from the stuff from the first movie. So yeah, but he doesn't want him joining him because he's already weak. He's not really going to be too much help. But yeah, so then he goes there. He starts fighting them. But then Hayato gets there, and they're both transformed into Kamen Rider and everything, or into their Kamen Riders. Then we get Shiro joining them as well as V3, and they all fight off the Shocker goons and everything. And I believe they beat the bad guy, the main bad guy, who's the Shocker like main henchman or whatever of this movie. And yeah, meanwhile, Kotomi, basically, Chiharu gets revenge by killing the record exec, her manager, and presumably the other chick that got surgically altered to look like her. She does something with the bodies, and initially, like, the blood from the manager isn't on the floor anymore. Then, like, later on, it is still, like, the pool of blood is, like, dried and everything. So, I guess she teleported the bodies somewhere. We don't get an answer as to what just happened there, or why they're gone and everything. But yeah, then Kotomi listens to the song that Chiharu put out, and she sees that Chiharu was actually in a lot of, like, pain and everything from being an idol and everything, because the song that she sings is about pain and her wanting to be free from everything and whatever. And she starts crying and saying sorry to Chiharu because she didn't know about anything in regards to what she was going through, and she couldn't do anything for her and everything. Initially, Chiharu was seemingly going to kill her, but then changes her mind on that when she sees that Kotomi is like all sorry and everything. So then Shiro goes down to the basement to stop Shocker from the last Shocker goon from dumping the nanoborgs wherever the hell they were going to transform Japan into cyborgs. And he, I believe, yeah, he defeats that person, and then like gets rid of the nanoborgs, I believe. But then Chiharu appears to him. Initially, she starts like attacking him, and he starts or any like defends from her attacks. But then she tells him basically to kill her, and so he absorbs some of the fire that's around them and does a fiery rider punch and does kill her. Then Takeshi and Hayato get down there to um, save him, and they get him out there or out of there. And yeah, Hayato takes off. Takeshi asks Shiro what he's going to do next, and Shiro says, "Just like you, I'll go on living." And yeah, we see Hayato meet up with the women from earlier in the movie that he met up with, and he has a last drink before he ends up dying, which is a thing apparently uh, exclusive to the extended version. Wasn't in the theatrical version for some reason. But yeah, I kind of expected, I'm not going to lie, I kind of expected Hayato to absorb some of the nanoborgs and heal and get back to full strength, which I was surprised that they didn't do, honestly. Um, but yeah. Um, so yeah, so then Takeshi's fired from school because, oh yeah, I forgot to mention this. So earlier in the film, uh, why do I Kotomi? She was essentially basically some of the mean girls at her school were trying to, um, or at least they seem like mean girls. Uh, they tried to get her to go with them because one of theirs boyfriend, his friend, has or had a not a crush, but like eyes for Kiyomi. So, um, or Kotomi. Sorry, I have a hard time remembering some names for some reason. Um, and basically tried to force her into the guy's car so they could go somewhere and do whatever. Obviously Kotomi didn't want to go because she wasn't interested, and unfortunately these douchebags didn't take no for an answer. And Takeshi then stopped the guy's car with his cyborg strength, and then there was a guy who was trying to ride his dirt bike up to Takeshi for some reason and doing a wheelie, but Takeshi caught that and broke off the front wheel. So yeah, and luckily Kotomi got out of the car at that because well, they couldn't really stop her. Um, so yeah, what is it with certain people in this movie acting like dickheads and just being absolute shithead assholes? Like what the fuck? Um, Genuinely, I'm just like, what is with the writing of this movie? I don't know. Um, but yeah, so he's getting fired for that because the kids are scared of him, and and the principal has gotten um like a lot of worried phone calls from parents. So yeah. Um. So then, why do I keep blanking on names, even ones I've already said? Takeshi and Kotomi, they like meet up. Kotomi's kind of like being truant again, and like they go off and do whatever. I don't really know if this was supposed to be a love story or some shit between the two of them. Like I know Takeshi's like, it seems like he's in his early 20s, early to mid 20s. This character, the Kotomi, would be like 16, 17, like I said. Not great. Not great. Just saying. And I know Japan has like different standards for like age of consent, but it's just like, ooh, bro. Come on, dude. Um but yeah, but granted, at the same time Takeshi seems like he's very respectful of women, so I don't think he'd really try anything, but yeah, it is just, although with some of the fact that, or the fact that some of the stuff he did earlier in the movie could constitute stalking, it's it's a little uncomfortable. But yeah, so that was Kamen Rider the Next. I think that this is actually a decent film. and everything. Even the horror elements I thought were fine. It doesn't really get too deep into actual horror, at the very least enough to like actually I think scare you. Um, some things are a bit legitimately creepy, like the beginning of the movie when you don't know exactly what's going on. But it builds a good mystery around what's happening with Chiharu and the stuff around her music video and everything, and and all that. And I feel like they fit in Kamen Rider V3 pretty decently into this plot. Um, and I felt like he seemed like a better person than Hayato was in the last movie. Um, like I said, I don't necessarily know if they needed to get rid of Asuka entirely. Um, but I'm also not really sad that she's not here. I don't know what that says about the first movie. Um, but yeah. And the film actually has a good focus for the plot. It is trying to find out what happened to Chiharu. I think I just said that. But yeah, and all that and that mystery and everything. Plus, it ties in with the Shocker stuff again decently because it was Shocker that kind of, or that it was Shocker that basically made her like she was and everything, and kickstarted the plot of the movie. And yeah, and I think the action is actually pretty decent in the movie. I think that they used the extra budget that they were allotted pretty well for it. There's a difference in the Kamen Rider Ichigo and Nigo suits in the movie. The Kamen Rider Ichigo suit looks more like the Nigo suit from the first movie, and where it's not like the like turquoise blue kind of um like color that it was in the first movie. Instead, here it's more green, like you would assume, and I think that goes with Takeshi's suit from the original series getting more getting more green as it goes on. Meanwhile, Hayato's suit is more of kind of like a more muted, desaturated kind of green. I think that goes. I think that's supposed to represent like his illness and everything that he's going through. Um, but yeah, and then the V3 suit, I actually like it. I like the interpretation that they went with for the suit, where it's the same material as in the same style as the first two suits and everything. It's just recreating V3's look from the original show and everything. And I think it actually looks pretty good. Surprised that they didn't include Rider Man at all, but at the same time, like, I don't know how they'd fit him in. But yeah, because Rider Man was like the secondary rider in V3. Um, so yeah, I kind of initially expected the principal to be Tachibana from the original series, which I forgot to mention this in the podcast episode. When it came to Kamen Rider the first, uh, Takeshi visits a guy running a motorcycle shop that gives him his bike, and that's apparently supposed to be Tachibana, who kind of knows about him, and I think comments on his motorcycle skills or some shit, and I think comparing him to his dad, if I'm remembering the dialogue right. But then he's not in any of the movie. Funnily enough, he's played in that movie by the original Kamen Rider V3, his actor, which is kind of funny. So yeah, and I wouldn't have known that exactly because I haven't watched Kamen Rider V3. I wouldn't have known that if I didn't watch the making of special feature for the first movie. So yeah, because again, I'm not too familiar with a lot of Kamen Rider at this point. But yeah, so yeah, I wonder what they would have done for a sequel because in one of the behind the scenes things, I think it's where I think it's the Kamen Rider thing. I think it's that. where Toshiki Inoue, he talked about, I think he talked about both movies, and at one point I believe he said that they had also apparently written a script for a third movie, where it was going to be a comedy. Um, I wonder what they would have done for that, and I wonder if the extended version of the next came about because Toei told them that they're not going to get another movie, but allowed them to put some scenes back into the movie that they cut from the theatrical version. Um, to at least I guess at least give closure to Hayato and everything. Um, yeah, there's also another thing where Hayato's actor in one of the or in the making of thing for this movie, I believe, he also says that he basically said that he was like playing Hayato in the movie like Hayato had feelings for Takeshi. Um, which there is a little bit of that kind of subtext in some of their scenes. But I don't know. It doesn't necessarily feel like that was maybe how it was written or directed, but it's how he played the character. So, and what he thought of those scenes, I guess. Um, so yeah. Um, but yeah. So I guess I really don't have much else to say on this movie versus the first one, because I think this is actually just a competent, decent Kamen Rider movie and superhero movie. It feels less melodramatic compared to the first one, and that is to its strengths. This is where I think a superhero movie like this really does well, where like you have this mystery plot, you have a few different things going on, and the plots interweave a bit and come together at the end. Um, and I very much actually appreciate how they went a different direction with the next. And I would have actually liked to have seen a third movie in this series, and everything. And I'm surprised that that's how I didn't give them one more. I guess the next probably didn't do too well the at the theaters, like in terms of box office. That's the only thing I can really think of, because otherwise I think that this is a movie that would have gotten a sequel if it got enough money in the box office to do that. Granted, I don't really know. I guess there's no like box office numbers. So yeah, and it's really weird. Like apparently the movie was given a PG-12, which I guess is a rating in Japan. As the Wikipedia page says, it was given a PG-12 rating for its brief nudity and violence. There's not really any nudity in the movie. There's one scene where the first chick who's pretending to be Chiharu is taking a bath, but her whole body, I guess minus I think one of her lower legs and feet, is below the water. You can't really see anything. And yeah, and her head is obviously above water, but you can't really see anything. Then there's Shiro's actor taking a shower after his initial fight, I think, with Takeshi. But he's shot from the waist up, so you can't really see anything. So, yeah, but I don't know. Granted, I guess that would get, PG-13 over here, so what do I know? But yeah, in terms of just nudity, it's just like, there's not really any nudity. If I saw some tits in this movie, that would be great, but like, if there wasn't. So, yeah, violence, I could kind of understand it. They did say in one of the behind-the-scenes featurettes that, like, they did want to add blood at one point for the cyborgs, because, like, they do get some of them do get their limbs chopped off. But they did not have the time and budget, I guess, to do that, to put that in, so they just didn't. I personally think it works a little better that, like, the cyborgs don't have blood. Maybe that's just me. and what does happen is like there's just sparks that come out of the limbs that they get chopped off. So yeah. Um, but hey, what do I know? Um, so yeah, I can't really think of anything else that I can really say about this movie because like I just think it is a decent film. I think it is much better than the first movie. So yeah, and I also think that Takeshi's actor gets more to do because he's actively involved in the plot, and the plot isn't stupid. So yeah, I also think that Shiro's like heel turn is uh is much better handled than Hayato's from the last movie as well. Because Hayato seems to like turn or heel turn out of nowhere, whereas Shiro he's actually given a reason. So yeah, granted though, I think Hayato's like heel turn is the fact that like Shocker for some reason deems him um a traitor out of nowhere for genuinely no reason, and I don't understand it. Um, that's the only thing I can think of though for that. So yeah, so I don't really have much else to say. It's just a decent film, and I would recommend it over the first. You only need to know a few things from the last movie that to make sense in terms of context for this movie. Other than that, it is a much better movie than the next. So, or than the first. I misspoke there. But yeah, so yeah, guys, not really much else to say. So, link, subscription, all my shit. Subscribe if you want, and I'll see you guys in the next one.